to them for a second. Come right back. Well, hi, everybody. Welcome to our town hall event with Cindy Slimp, who is running for State House in the Springfield area. If you are watching right now, let us know where you're from, where you're watching from, so that we know and we can start getting questions from you. If you are watching on Facebook, Twitter, or YouTube, you can actually put your comments right there and we will get to see them. So comments, questions, anything that you have, let us know. If you are watching on the website, you can actually text the number that's there that goes right to this phone here, and that way we can get your questions on here as well. So go ahead and do that while you're waiting, because we'll come on in just about a minute or so. But while you're waiting, if you can, please share the video so that we can get more people watching, more people asking questions and involved, and a stronger and better conversation. So we'll be back in just a bit for the town hall. Very excited today. So go ahead and get those questions going, and we'll see you very soon. All right, everybody, welcome to the town hall. Here we are again. If you are watching right now, wherever you're watching from, you should share this video. Make sure that more folks can get in on this town hall. We've got a wonderful candidate for state representative, and I'm going to bring on Cindy right now. So let's make sure she's still there. And sure she is. Hello, Cindy. Can you hear us?
Yes, I can. How are you?
Great. How are you doing?
I'm fantastic.
Could you let everybody know where you are right now?
I am in my home in Springfield, Missouri, Southwest Springfield, Battlefield area. Um, I've been working from home for a couple of months now, and I'm a little tired of this room.
Yeah.
But I'm so happy to be here with you and with other people from Missouri and to talk about your campaign and my campaign and get some action going.
Yeah. Yeah, I think is this I know there's the what's the Twitter? The rate my Zoom room, I think it is. Is this your standard Zoom room?
It is, yeah. And I just put up curtains because it's so blinding. But depending times of the day, I hung curtains.
Okay, wait. So I'm gonna do a thing. I'm gonna blow up the video for you so that everybody can see. I'm gonna do it right now. They can still hear me, of course. But tell us, like, why have you set up the room? Why is this your Zoom room? Why is this one in?
I have done some other Zoom meetings where other people sat outside and it looked really awesome, and I want to do that too. But now it's kind of gotten hot.
Yeah.
Um, and I've got a family. I've got a dog that barks at the wind. My cat insisted on being in here for this meeting today. Uh,
Yeah.
so this is just kind of my go-to. I've got my whole office set up going on. I've got my boyfriend's office set up. He's working on his doctorate
All right.
currently, and so this is just kind of the room where the business happens.
That's great. Okay, yeah, that's fair. I mean, it's good because then you don't have to move so much. You got all your stuff right there. It's pretty great.
Right.
What is your boyfriend's doctorate going to be in?
It's
Well,
medical.
okay,
He works at Cox, and he is working in medical administration and medical research.
gotcha. Yeah. Oh, yeah. One of the smart people. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's great. Well, let us know. So you're running for House District 133, right?
That's correct.
All right. Tell us. So, there might be some folks who are watching who don't, we know about Congress, we know about the president, we often don't know about attorney general, we often know about governor and maybe even lieutenant governor, state representative. It's a very important position. It's one that makes a whole lot of impact in our lives. Tell us, why are you running for state representative in the wonderful state of Missouri?
Gosh, for the longest time, I didn't realize how impactful local government was, and that goes down even to city level, county level. But I decided to run because I really didn't feel like I'm represented by our current representative. Um, he is on his second term, and he's now running to be the House Majority Speaker. But the type of legislation that he presents to the Missouri House and the type of representation or the type of bills that he votes for in the Missouri House don't really represent people as much as they represent businesses.
Mm-hmm.
And while I am a strong supporter of small businesses and businesses in general, I think your primary goal, like your primary job, is to represent the constituents who vote you into office, not the people who donate the most to your campaign. So I'm all about ethics reform. I'm all about transparency and sunshine laws and accountability for um, for the things that you do while you're in office. And um, so that's kind of what pushed me over the edge to decide to run back in 2018. I had a sit down with Crystal Quaid, and she talked to me about it, and um, it it sounded terrifying and exciting both at the same time. I want to make positive impact on the people that live in my community.
Yeah. Well, that's a very good reason to get involved in government. So for all of you out there who want to do that, I wonder. So a lot of folks, they'll come from it from maybe a profession standpoint, and they saw something, and it was interesting. So Dave Gragg, who we did a town hall with, he's running in the Springfield area too, Republic and all of that. He had this journalism background. And it was interesting because we talked a lot about the Sunshine Law. The Sunshine Law, for those of you who are unfamiliar, is the public records transparency law for Missouri. There's a federal version called FOIA that you might have heard of, the Freedom of Information Act. We have a similar one. It needs to be stronger, but we have a similar one in Missouri that came about because out of the President Nixon administration, we needed some transparency in our government. So I wonder how, what do you think has shaped the values that you have, that you want to take to Jefferson City as a state representative?
Gosh,
Good question, right? I try to bring the good ones. So,
well, honestly, 100% growing up poor.
mm,
Um, I grew up poor with a single mom. She raised three kids, mostly by herself. We lived with my grandma and grandpa for several years when we were incredibly fortunate to have that opportunity. A lot of people don't have family that they can lean on. And I am so blessed. My mom, she taught us right from wrong when I was a kid. She explained to me when I was 4 years old what a transgender person was in Joplin, Missouri, 1980.
yeah,
um, and I've just always, I've just always been a person who feels like if things aren't fair, things aren't right, and I want to be the person who makes sure that things are equal and fair. And I don't think that our government's doing that on many, many, many levels. Whether it be income inequality, access to healthcare, access to food, access to education, um, equal rights for LGBTQ people, and I just I'm the kind of person who, if things aren't fair, things aren't right, and I want to fix it.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, thank you for doing it. So you are you ran in 2018,
Mhm.
and you're running now. Have has anything changed, I guess, since then? Has anything in terms of your motivate? Obviously, you decided to do it again. A lot of people don't, right? I've had a lot of friends who I've recruited to run, and it's tough, and it was hard, and they felt like they didn't have as much support as they needed, and they're done. You're back. You're back for more. What is bringing you back? And are there things that you are doing differently now than you did last time?
Oh my.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I honestly, like, here in Greene County, we got a lot of support from the Greene County Democratic Party. I got a lot of support from volunteers. I got a lot of support from the state Democratic Party. Um, I have an amazing campaign manager and I have an amazing treasurer, and both of them just have busted their buns, and the volunteers as well. It's I can't explain how appreciative I am of everything that they've done. Um, Things are definitely different now because of COVID. We had started back in February, late February, knocking on doors and registering voters and talking to people, and things came to a screeching halt where you can't knock on doors anymore. We've got a postcard campaign, and right now, in all honesty, it's very difficult to raise money for a campaign, and you have to have money, especially now because knocking on doors is free, but mailing things is not.
Mm-hmm.
So, um, we're putting off any more of the postcards and direct mail, and I'm about to start. I'm working on a literature piece, so we can start doing lit drops again. There's no face-to-face contact, but um, the last time around, I left a phone number, my phone number, and if you have any questions, please give me a call. And the last piece that we sent out was asking people if they needed any help. Do you need groceries? Do you need somebody to run an errand for you? Are
Yeah.
you health compromised? Um, and this was back in March, and I got some phone calls back, and I talked to some constituents, and that was it. It always makes me feel so good when someone reaches out, because a lot of people just ignore
Right.
the minute pieces that they get. But so right now we're focused on phone banks, reaching out to voters in the district via phone, and we're about to start doing lit drops.
Yeah.
So
Oh yeah.
last time around at this time, we were knocking on 300 doors a week and or more, and now that's it's
Yeah.
very frustrating.
Right.
But I'm still excited. I still want to win. I I want to win.
Yeah.
I'm gonna win.
And I mean, there you go. And the benefit for you is that since you did this before, at least you have knocked doors, right? You didn't do it like right before this one, but it wasn't too long ago. So that's something positive, I guess, out of having run before too, because
Yeah,
people know you.
yeah, and it's my favorite thing to do. I would much
Yeah.
rather talk to somebody face to face than have an online uh, Facebook conversation or a private conversation
Mm.
via email or even over the phone. I just you lose so much of communication when you're not face to face talking to somebody.
Right. Right. And you did mention, stuff. This stuff costs money, and so there you have a website that folks can go on and they can help you out, right?
I do.
Yeah, and that's cindyslimp.org, right?
That's correct.
Wow, it's on the screen. How in the world did that happen? Yeah, it's right there. Whoa, how do we do that? Yeah, it's also, if you're watching on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, whatever, there's also a link right there too, so it's a little bit easier to press than, pretending to press this one, but those are the words for you, the letters, so you can spell it out, type it right in. Yeah, so you can go to the website and find ways to support and contact you over there too. So,
Thank you.
yeah, no, that's great. So I know we've got some folks who are watching. Sabrina's watching. Oh, great! How are you doing? Good to see you. And Dr. Englehart's on too, so that's great. He's got a question. We are definitely going to get to it, and it's interesting because I discussed that a little bit earlier today on a different town hall. So I think we'll have a good discussion about it. But before we get there, I want to see, for you, there's a lot happening in Missouri. There's a lot happening in America right now. And I wonder for you, starting the campaign, having run before, right here, and looking at what's going on for your district, what are the issues that you are seeing that is top priority for the folks that you would like to represent?
Moreover, today and historically, it's education and healthcare.
Mm-hmm.
Access to healthcare, primarily access to healthcare and education. Like you said, there's a whole lot going on in the world right now. There's a whole lot going on in Springfield and the state of Missouri right now. We're seeing an uprise and an issue with criminal justice reform, systemic racism coming to a head, finally. But here for my district, I'm not so sure that is a top issue. One of my big goals in being in office is to expand access to healthcare. I helped get Medicaid expansion on the ballot, and that's going to be on the August ballot here in the state of Missouri. Mm-hmm. And it's absolutely crucial that Medicaid expansion passes. This should have happened back in 2016. We have the money. We've got over $2.7 billion sitting at the federal government of money that we've paid in as taxpayers, waiting for us to take it and to give people health care. It's just absolutely necessary. People who don't have health insurance are, and this might sound cruel, but it's more expensive for people who do have health insurance to cover people who don't have health insurance. Mm-hmm. And us not having expanded Medicaid, we've closed 14 rural hospitals in the state of Missouri because they end up going bankrupt. And that's those hospitals are detrimental to people in rural areas, especially in the middle of the state and down in the southern eastern part of the state. Right. So even though those people might not, the most affected people might not be in my district, they still matter to me, and I want to make sure that they can have the health care that they need. Education, we've cut millions and millions of dollars from education over the last 4 years. And a large part of that is because we've cut the corporate tax rate. Governor Parson posted an article yesterday about how Missouri is now one of the best places to open a corporation, and that's largely because the corporate tax rate is 4.2%. The money has to come from somewhere for these social programs to be able to help people. And so now with COVID and needing to make way for monies to be available for testing and whatnot, we've cut another $200 million from the public education system, and that's K-12 schools. So every time education is the first place to get cut, and that's the very last place that we should take money from, because if our kids aren't educated, they're our future. If our kids aren't educated, we lose hope. I lose hope.
Right. Yeah, a state full of well-supported corporations and non-supported kids doesn't seem to be the right way to go. Right. Doesn't seem to serve anybody really at that point. Right. Yeah, you talked. So you talked about Medicaid expansion that will be on the ballot on August 4th. So during the primary, folks are like, "Oh, is it? We got it. It's going to be on the general election in November." It was moved to the primary. That was a decision made by the governor. Right. And some folks thought that was a political decision. He said, well, we need to get this done earlier so that we can plan for it. I mean, whatever. All right, let's pass it earlier. That's fine. It's important because and there are studies out there that have shown Medicaid expansion, which many states have done, can save Missouri money, and I mean, just like you mentioned, money is getting very short in Missouri for a lot of reasons. Some manufactured, and some because of the disaster that we're facing right now. But Medicaid, there are lots of studies about reimbursement rates and how folks are now going to be covered. So would expand healthcare coverage for 200,000 plus is the estimate of the most vulnerable Missourians in our state, which allows folks to access substance abuse treatment, preventive care, all of these things that can really save us money in many different areas, including in the justice system, including in the court system, where we've got hospitals now that have no choice but to go after uninsured people to try to make them get on a payment plan that they can never afford. We've got courts that are just full of people. So yeah, it certainly seems to make a whole lot of sense. And so that vote will be on August 4th on the primary. So you could vote for that then.
Right. And in addition to that, with the with COVID-19, we have our state house has passed the ability to vote from home, but you have to qualify for certain reasons why you should be able to vote from home. And I think all of us should be actively calling the governor. I do it on the regular. Call the governor, let him know we need access to be able to vote from home safely, even if we're not a person who is at risk. It doesn't apply to people who say that I'm not an at-risk person, but I live with a person who's at risk.
Yeah.
I don't qualify to automatically be able to vote from home. And the military has been doing this for over 200 years. The president does it. His entire family does it. Our elected officials do it. There's no reason why we shouldn't all be able to vote from home safely.
Yeah. There are several states that have implemented this statewide, no problem. And there's a lot of reasons why people don't want folks to vote. But yes, the legislature did pass and the governor did sign. He had to wait until after this municipal election we just had, because otherwise the law would have applied to that election, and and the local election authorities would have had very little time to get prepared for it. So at least now they do. And we have a website that we put up called votemissouri.org, where folks can go and you can actually apply for absentee ballots electronically. So it lets you sign online, or you can actually upload a signature on a piece of paper. You just write it out and you can use your phone. So votemissouri.org. It's undergoing some changes now because the law has changed, and there will eventually be some video tutorials, probably right from this desk, about how you can vote absentee. And the deadlines and everything else are on there. It's a really good resource. It also has the contact information for all the local election authorities around the state. So you can contact them directly to see, which excuse is okay. But yes, there is a new 7th excuse now that does not require a notary, that applies during the coronavirus outbreak. It is very limited in terms of who it applies to. So it doesn't, it includes some folks who have some pre-existing conditions, but not even all of them that are warning signs that the CDC has put out there for folks who are in an at-risk population. So, and you're totally right. It does not include anybody. I mean, if you're living with somebody who is at risk, it's not really included in there. There is another excuse that has been on the books for a while, and that is actually in court right now, that would allow everybody to vote absentee without requiring a notary. That is commonly understood as on the list as excuse number 2, confinement due to illness. And that one allows folks who are taking care of somebody who is confined to also vote absentee without a notary, but it's not clear that that applies to folks. For example, if you work in a nursing home,
Right.
there's that we didn't. I guess we just didn't think about that for some reason, despite the fact that we were all talking about it. So, yeah, and it did expand mail-in voting for everybody. So everybody could vote by mail, but you'll need a notary. And that's the big problem, is that there is a hang-up on being able to access a notary. There really aren't enough notaries in the state to,
Right.
yeah,
Right. And then um, are you going to be able to access a notary for free,
right.
or are you going to have to pay for it? You should never have to pay to vote.
Correct. Yeah. Yeah. You should not. And for notaries, so the notary will not be able to under the law, at least for, and this is what, there's a lot of legal research being done right now, but at least for absentee ballots, they cannot charge you money. But
Okay.
now that we expand the mail-in voting side of it, there is a question there about whether they can or they cannot. Because it wasn't very explicit in what we passed. There is some provision that makes me think that they still cannot, and I think a lot of notaries, they won't think that there is a difference because they're trained to not do that anyway. But if you go to a bank, I know a lot of banks in the state are doing notaries using the what the heck, the pneumatic whatever, the suction thing, the thing you put the rolling thing and you shoot it up there. So some of them are doing that through the drive-through
Like
window.
the drive-through.
Yeah, yep. Some banks are doing that. So if you call ahead and check it out, I know Warrensburg, Raymond was talking about them doing that. If you're watching, let us know if it's still going on. But I know he mentioned it, and then I think some bank branches, like some bank branches, have said, "Hey, this is what we're doing, so we want to help folks out." Yeah, we've also expanded. We expanded the electronic. This stuff gets so complicated. It really didn't need to be. It should have just been very simple, and you can
Right.
do it safely.
Oh, but we don't want everybody to vote, though.
I mean, I do.
Um,
You do. We do.
I do.
We're just, we're not in charge yet, so you all have to fix that and vote. Change that whole thing, because this is a freaking mess. And it wouldn't be one. I mean, if you look at it, the governor could have easily done this even without the legislature, because we gave him emergency powers to look at parts of statutes and even suspend them if he needs to because of the emergency. One would think protecting the fundamental right to vote, kind of that really basic thing in a democracy to make sure it functions, would qualify for him saying, "Oh, yeah, still you have to fill out all this information. Still, we're going to verify your identity. We're going to do all these things, but you don't need a notary." Just like these other excuses that say you don't need one. I mean, we can do
Right.
it. So, yeah, unfortunately, we've created a bit of a mess, but at least it's better than nothing, I suppose. But unfortunately, we're very used to getting nothing in this state. So anything looks good. It's sad. Yeah, it's sad. So that's what we're trying to fix here. Okay, so healthcare, very important. Medicaid expansion will be on the ballot August 4th. I also help collect signatures, so I'm a little bit biased, but yeah, I recommend it too. And then education. Yeah, I mean, it's so interesting because, I don't know, what does it look like in your area now that we've moved away from kids getting to, going to schools? Like now they're at home so much. What has been the impact of that on families in your district? Have there been any difficulties, do going electronic, especially with, internet access issues or anything else like that?
Absolutely. If you don't have access to internet at home, there's problem number one. But problem number one is that if you were one of the people that still had to continue to work every single day, what do you do with your kids?
Mm-hmm.
That's number one. Um, Not, again, going back to my childhood, not everybody has family that they can rely on in order to help them take care of the kids. And who are going to be the people that do take care of the kids? Is it going to be grandparents because they're at risk? We don't have safety in place in order for people to be taken care of in a situation like this. And I am incredibly fortunate and I'm incredibly privileged to have had a workplace that's let me work from home for the last 2 months, and they even extended it because I have a child, and I don't want to take her, to a summer program because I don't feel that it's safe. So, again, I'm incredibly fortunate. I'm blessed and thankful. Um,
Yeah.
the impact on so many families. I've spoken to so many people that where is my unemployment check? Where's my money? I'm sitting here. I don't have groceries. I spoke to an employer for a restaurant here in town who was concerned about. He was okay. He was doing all right, but he was really worried about one of his employees, who, the poor guy. He has a couple of kids with a couple of different moms, and his paycheck is already pretty much deteriorated from child support,
Mm-hmm.
and then when he loses that, and then he gets a stimulus check, and then the stimulus check got hit for the child support. He's sitting there with nothing, and while I'm a strong advocate for women and people feeding their kids, and, and men taking care of the children that they produce, and women as well. They just 100%. Missouri, the state of Missouri was not prepared. The state of Missouri did not take precautions to help protect people, to help protect families, to help protect kids, to help protect senior citizens who were going to be the most vulnerable. And there are so many changes that need to be made. It's defeating, and it it makes me angry, and that's what I'm doing. That's why I'm here.
Yeah. It's a complicated system that we've built that unfortunately really impacts. It is very expensive to be poor, and
Exactly. It's far more expensive to be poor than it is to have money.
yeah. So we've really got. I mean, when we're talking about so many of the issues that we're seeing now, so much links back to this inequity of opportunity. And what does it mean? What is fairness, right? Basic fairness in our society is so important because it means that what we're doing as a government is legitimate. Like, is the government working for we the people? And that's always been the question in the history of our country. And it's tough to look now, oftentimes, and ask that question and look at what bills are being passed, what policies are being made, what executive decisions are, and you just wonder, like, is that really for us? Like, who is that for? And I think you have a perfect example. You were talking about the wonderful benefits that we're giving, and not even, I mean, to corporations, but primarily to large ones, to monopolistic ones, and not to small ones, not to little ones that are driving most of the economic growth already in our state, but to
Right.
these big ones that oftentimes aren't even promising more jobs. They might be shipping them somewhere else, but they get the tax benefits. So
Right.
yeah.
And while we're talking about how it's more expensive to be poor than it is to not be poor, my state rep, the representative that I'm running against, Curtis Trent, here in Springfield, we have been working on the city council, working to the city council for years to try to get them to pass some regulations on payday lenders and predatory lenders. We finally got them unanimously to pass legislation at the city level to put a yearly fee on these predatory lenders. It's a $5,000 a year fee. The very same day, my state rep Curtis Trent snuck in to the very last day of the state uh, session, snuck in a bill to prevent any city or local government from imposing any kinds of fees or fines on predatory lenders.
Yeah.
So with that, I mean, you can pay 400% interest on one of these predatory loans. And Steve Pokin, who's a local investigative reporter, did a story on it. Um, Basically, for a $1,200 loan paid off at term, it was going to cost him $2,400. So, I mean, that just speaks volumes about how these lenders work and how this representative works. It's pro business, not pro people.
Yeah, and it's some of these particular ones. We're seeing the same. Unfortunately, a lot of these companies, not only are they, it would be one thing to charge all that interest, which I think is already ridiculous because it's just bad, right? And you don't have to do that. There are other places that still make sure you can get access to money. And they still charge interest, but it's nowhere close to being that high. So you don't need to do that. But two, a lot of these companies aren't upfront with you, right? They're taking advantage of people who are really in need of money. Right. I know a lot of people who've been trapped in these things, and then two, it's not like they're very, oh, here's all these additional fees that you're also going to pay that we're not telling you about. There's a lot of stuff that isn't really spoken about, and it's a very big consumer protection issue in our state. We've actually been talking to some groups about doing one of these town halls on that, just on predatory lending in Missouri. But I mean, you even look at our current attorney general. He has taken money directly from corporations that are all predatory lenders, all of them, and they charge hundreds and hundreds of percentage points in interest, and are just here to take advantage of folks. And it's sad to see them, one, do it to a state rep, and then two, do it to the person who is supposed to be protecting consumers in the state of Missouri from predatory lenders. And it's the money that's moving into our politics, unfortunately, is really damaging what our democracy is supposed to be. So, yeah, I agree. It's a very big issue. You had, I know that there was, let's do it. Let's go in order. We've got Dr. Engelhardt on here. He's been waiting so hard. All right, I'm going to put him on the broadcast. Here we go. All right, do you have any thoughts on the role unions play in protecting staff who have a history of misconduct? And he's talking about mental health, corrections, and police departments where he has seen issues. That's an interesting topic. Earlier today, we had a town hall with the president of the Ethical Society of Police, which is a police union, historically black police union, due to segregation issues in St. Louis City and representation issues that still go on today. And she is a homicide detective in St. Louis. And she let it rip, because her view is that your union is not serving anybody unless they are rooting out bad folks, especially when it comes to policing or if it comes to law enforcement or public service in general. Was very pro-transparency. And so, yeah, we talk a lot about, I'm a supporter of unions and labor, and I'm very fortunate to have support in this race from a few of these organizations already, which is great. And for me, I've been on picket lines and strikes, and I really feel very strongly that organized workers have pushed our country so much further in making sure that we are protecting workers in the workplace. Now, we've drawn back a lot from that, but we need to, we still have at least a foundation of that in the history of doing that. And I think we're moving towards that direction again. But yeah, I'd love to get your view too. But my view is that unions that are protecting employees that are bad, that are drawing down everybody else's reputation around them, that is not helping the union. It's not helping their employees, because that's not the only employee you've got. You've got all these other ones who are there too. And just look at what's happening in policing right now. And it's certainly, when it comes to public service, is not helping the public, which is supposed to be the point of all of this.
Absolutely. I too am I'm a strong union supporter. They have laid the groundwork for every benefit that we have as either, whether you're an hourly employee or a salaried employee, they've done the work to make all of these, workers' rights laws for us. that being said, with policing, I truly feel that policing has become a different job from what it had and what it should be, what it was intended to be. Their job isn't to patrol. Their job isn't to stop risk. Their job isn't to, put people in jail for drug, people with addiction issues shouldn't be in jail.
Right.
Um,
Yeah. I mean, it's an interesting point. I don't think a lot of people know this, but in our prison system, and so when I was an assistant attorney general, I worked a lot with the Department of Corrections, and actually even after I get a lot of letters from folks around the state, and some of them are incarcerated. Was actually invited. I'm so bummed this one didn't happen. It was invited. There's a local NAACP branch in Moberly, which is a correctional facility. It's a town, but there is a correctional facility in the town. Moberly, wonderful town. I love it. It is not just that. There's community college. It's very lovely there. But I was going to go, and obviously we can't now because of the virus and concerns, which is a big deal in corrections right now too. But they had invited me to come and speak about the candidacy. So certainly going to send some material and information about it. They can't vote because they don't have the right to vote while they're there. But it's
or until they're off of probation.
Correct. Yes, while they're there, right? And we just had somebody we were just talking to in the state because we're texting a whole lot of folks right now. Once you are off of papers, off of probation, parole, you can vote again. And I know that message sometimes is not very clear in our exit strategy once you leave prison, and that's something that we really need to fix. I've been talking a lot about DOC and some of the reforms that we need there for reentry and making sure folks are coming back into society. Most folks come back in. But one of the interesting statistics, and this is from our state, our state government looking at folks. Folks, there is of the people who are in prison in Missouri, it is over 90% have some kind of an issue with substance abuse. 90%, which is an astronomical number. And if you think about just like what you were saying, one of that is because this is where policing has gone. This is where policy has gone. It's not necessarily the fault of a police officer who's being told by somebody in D.C. or Jefferson City to go lock these people up.
Right.
Because that becomes, well, I guess that's my job now. But because we haven't treated this as the public health emergency that it really is, and we've just said, oh, well, police, you go deal with this problem that we don't have any plans for. Corrections, you go deal with this problem. And here we are. Here we are locking people up who instead they could be getting treatment. We don't have Medicaid expansion. We could do that so we could increase access to treatment. And folks who could be out and with families and helping folks and working and contributing to the economy and our lives and society and everything. Instead, we're just warehousing them. And
right.
I think you're told. I mean, it's a very big issue right now for our state. Yeah.
It's incredibly defeating. I was happy when we passed a statewide law regarding, oh my gosh, what was it? Oh my gosh, it was so long ago, like a year ago.
It feels like everything's taken forever now. Yeah. Oh, it's a whole year.
It's like, woo!
Yeah.
About nonviolent criminals being locked up and not being able to afford bail money.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm talking about?
Yes, yeah. So we had some bail reform. I mean, it's not extreme bail reform, but that was initially it was a Supreme Court rule the idea is to prevent folks from being locked up, especially pre-trial, waiting for their case, right, just because they don't have money, which happens quite often.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. No. Yes. I know people who have sat in jail for a year and a half because they didn't have bail money.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Yep.
we need massive criminal justice reform. Um, we need better policing. We need, and I know like we have massive issues in the St. Louis area with, and I know that, so there was a statistic that 90% of people who get pulled over are people of color,
Oh yeah.
when the population of Missouri is only like 30% Black people. Um,
Yeah. Yeah.
and
The vehicle stops report, which, yeah, I could talk forever about that. Vehicle stops report comes out every year. It's from the Attorney General. I highly encourage you all to read it and to look at the statistics. It showed that it wasn't quite like 90% of all the people who were pulled over. It was when you look at people who are being pulled over, the comparison was who is more likely to be pulled over, right? Like what are the percentages and everything else. It showed that Black drivers in Missouri are between 87 and 94% more likely to be pulled over than their white counterparts. They're more likely to be pulled over. They're more likely to be arrested, but they are less likely to have contraband during those stops. And that is not the first time that this has happened. It's not the second time. That is the 20th year, the 20th, 20th row that we have had that problem, the 20th year. And that release, which is so frustrating, it came out just a few days after George Floyd was murdered. It came out on a Friday afternoon. It came out without any press or any big acknowledgement of we've got some problems in our state. Not even that. All it came out was with a little release that said, oh, we're going to change some of the data measures next year, and no plan whatsoever from the Attorney General's office about what we're going to do about it. 20th year in a row. And if that doesn't tell you something about what's going on here, I don't know what will. But yeah, that's a significant data point, to say the least. Yeah. We did have a follow-up from Dr. Engelhardt. I'm going to put that on here too, because he makes a very good point. And then we'll get some other folks too. It's not just unions, which I also support. Also, the administration that doesn't do the work to advocate for those in their care, because they are underfunded and understaffed too. And I think so often, just like what we've been discussing, when you look at our public institutions, we have not invested in them. We haven't invested in them. We haven't invested in our communities and the people and the services that folks need. Instead, we are allocating those resources elsewhere. And oftentimes, that elsewhere is to protect or to draw in or to support whatever it is, folks with a whole lot of money already. And that's why they still get to keep all of their money. I mean, that's what they want. So they get a lobbyist to do that for them, and then they pay a big check to have somebody elected that's going to help them out. I totally agree. I think we're seeing big problems in the supports that so many folks, because there are a lot of folks in public service who are trying to do this for the right reasons. If you look at the Department of Corrections, some of the lowest paid folks in state government, some of them get less than $20,000 per year to work in a corrections in our state. And we've got a lot of issues where we've kind of like, oh, let's just keep cutting back without fixing a lot of the root causes. And here we are again, where everything blows up because we just do not have the resources to deal with it, because we've refused to deal with it. And instead we've really catered to those already with a whole lot of money and power.
Right.
Yeah. So yeah, public service is important. Please get involved. Yeah, very important. You had a question came in, I think it was from Sabrina. You were talking about healthcare, so I'm going to get that up on here too. Talk about the hideous high rate of maternal and infant mortality because of those hospital closures. Thank you for your hard work putting Medicaid on the ballot, and I thank you for that as well. So
thank you. State Rep Sarah Unsicker had a bill that she presented 3 years in a row, and it finally did pass this year, to actually investigate why we have such a high rate of maternal and infant mortality, and especially among the Black community in the state of Missouri. That has passed, and she's gotten some funding. That happened this session. So I applaud her for doing that work to take care of women, and people with uteruses and to figure out what's going on. A lot of it does have to do with the lack of access to healthcare in rural areas. A lot of it has to do with being believed as a woman. Uh, when you have healthcare issues, this may sound silly, but you're more often likely to be dismissed of your healthcare concerns if you're a female than you are if you're a male. And that's uh, far more so if you're a person of color. So, one of the first hospitals to be closed down in the state of Missouri because of the lack of Medicaid money coming in was down in Pemiscot County, and it is the lowest income county in the state of Missouri. So now anybody down in that area who had a hospital to go to has to travel an hour in order to visit a hospital. We need more nurse practitioners to be able to provide full scope health care because they're just qualified as doctors are, but the state of Missouri hasn't passed legislation to allow for that to happen yet. But it has come up and it needs to happen, especially one more time for rural communities where you don't have access to a doctor, within an hour's drive. Medicaid expansion, this goes into also, with the whole COVID-19 crisis, having lost 14 hospitals in the state of Missouri. Not only did we lose those hospitals, but we also lost the hospital staff, and we lost the beds, we lost the respirators, we lost the equipment. So, we have been incredibly fortunate to have been to have not seen the massive spread like some other communities have had. But had it gotten out of hand and we needed those facilities and those, pieces of equipment and the PPE, this could have been a disaster for the state of Missouri. So I'm incredibly fortunate that didn't happen, but we're not prepared for a disaster like this, if it were to happen. And we've seen two of our rural cities that were hit pretty hard with factories, animal processing factories that lots of sickness, lots of illness, and thankfully those people were able to get help. But
right.
We weren't prepared.
Yeah.
We're not prepared, and we have to expand Medicaid.
Yep. Vote August 4th, everybody. August 4th. If you're not putting it in your calendar right now, I don't know what you're watching, because we've mentioned it a few times. Put it in. So we're coming close to the end here, but let me we got a question. I think we can make a hopeful one. At least I look at it and I see the hope in it. So this is from Elliot. Elliot says, how do we get through to people who have given up on state government in both parties?
I mean, when I talk to folks, I don't talk about parties. I don't want to talk about parties. I want to talk about policy, and I want to talk about what matters to them. What things would you most like to see happen for your community, your district, the state of Missouri? What things would most impact your family and your well-being? And I think a lot of our representation is kind of either they got into it for the wrong reasons, or once you've been elected for a little bit, you kind of forget why you were doing it in the first place. And I think maybe some people lose their way, and I think mostly we say that at the federal level, not so much at statewide or local government. But I don't know. I personally, I'm a progressive Democrat. I don't want any money from corporations. I don't want any dark money. I don't want dark PAC money. I don't want a giant check from somebody that I don't know. my campaign is run strictly on small donations from regular people that, if I haven't met you, typically it's going to be a $20 check. But my reason for running is to represent that person that sent me a check for $20. And
Mm-hmm.
I want to know what they need, and I want to represent those needs.
Yeah.
What a corporation needs. Well, I'm not anti big business. I'm not, I understand how money works, but I have a lot more compassion for people than I do for corporations where CEOs have gotten wealthy and, are hiding money in offshore accounts and building their wealth off of the backs of lowly paid employees. So, if that's how you gain your wealth, then you need to be giving back, and that's the end of the story. You need to be paying back into the infrastructure that got you where you were. You need to be paying back into the labor force that got you where you were. You need to be paying back into the education system that got you where you are.
Yeah. I think, we had a guest on Saturday. Man, the days are just going. He's an author, Chris Arnatti, and he wrote a book called Dignity. It's good, it was making the rounds, and then the virus hit, so he couldn't really talk to us. So he came on my call, and he actually traveled, and he told me, God, it was an astronomical number, 400,000 miles in the country, all across. And he actually came to Missouri. He came to a town that you may be familiar with, Mountain Grove. Ain't too far. It's in the southern area of the state. And he stopped there, and he decided to stop. He was picking where he would stop based on where there were McDonald's and Walmarts, and that's where he would stop. And he would sit there, and he would eventually talk to folks. And he talked to a lot of people who had disengaged from the political system. They weren't voting anymore. And I asked him that question. And for him, what he saw, and this is something that I've seen too, having traveled all over the state now quite a few times before all this, is why would they get involved? Why, when government has screwed them over so much, would they then say, oh, you know what I think is I'm going to spend my time helping somebody who's running for office, some politician, or even spending the time to vote? Why would I do that? I've encountered quite a few people, including in Springfield. When I first came on the campaign trail, there was a bartender I was in the bar and I was talking, and he was listening. And he eventually looked over and he asked somebody across the bar, and he said, who is that guy? And they said, oh, his name's Elad. He's running for Attorney General. And I ended up talking to him for a good 15 minutes after I was done. He does not vote. And he is now going to vote in this election. And not only looking at me, he's looking at candidates in his district. He's looking at Springfield. He's like, wow. Because I think the biggest problem is for folks, we are a hopeful people in America. We are willing to move past things. We are willing to forgive if we see something is there and it's there's some glimmer of hope that it's going to work. And I think the problem that we've had is that far too many folks have not shown up, especially in communities that we have ignored and neglected for a long time, like Pemiscot County that you mentioned, which is the highest poverty rate in the state. We need to show up, and I think that we have candidates now who are actually doing that, which is great. Having been involved for a while in this state and having not seen that effort, it's really great to see folks like you who are going out there and who are frustrated by the fact that you can't knock doors right now because you know what that means, and you're there because you want to be there for the right reasons. And I think folks see that, and when they see you show up, even if they might disagree with you on some things, they know that you're straightforward with them, you're honest, you're willing to come on here and answer whatever question comes up. And heck, I might disagree with her on this one thing, but she's going to be there. And I know I can trust what she's telling me, what she's going to do. And I think it's obviously a process, and one that we have to rebuild trust with folks and all these different things, all these different institutions. But I feel, and in answer to Elliot's question, I feel like the answer is really showing up, working on behalf of the folks, and being transparent about what we're doing. And I think that's the way to rebuild community in our state.
Right. Right. Communicate with people.
Yeah.
Be available. I I worked with a friend of mine who lives in the Kansas City area when she was stressing out about her unemployment. She works in restaurants, and while I don't have the capacity or the tools to get her what she needs, I got her in touch with her state representative, and her state representative called her, and she got her paychecks. Um, I right I do my best, everything that I can do to help anybody that needs anything. Um, I'm a normal person. I live paycheck to paycheck. I didn't go to college to be a politician, and I didn't even go to a real college. I went to Ballarat. So, and it's defined, it's at us now. So, I'm a regular person, and I think that we need a lot more regular people as elected officials who understand what it's like to live paycheck to paycheck, and to maybe once in a while, I've taken payday loans, to worry about what if I need an oil change, not an oil change, but what if I need a brake job, and it's just not in the budget. I think we need people that have compassion and care about one another, and I really truly feel like we all have so much more in common than we think that we do, but our media and our social media is so filled with distractions and separation that we think that we'll never be able to see eye to eye, and we really do. And I know that from knocking on doors and talking to people, and from calling people on the phone and talking to them about different issues that they're concerned about. Um, we're all humans, and we really all do care about each other. I think we just, kind of lose sight of that. And, life's busy, life's hard, but we have to lean on each other and watch out for each other.
Beautiful. I agree. This is great. Thank you so much for coming on. I really appreciate it. I appreciate you doing the town hall. That's her website right there in the middle. In case you didn't know it, I just snuck in the middle again. Check out Cindy. She's doing great work, and goodness, you just need to take everything you just said there and make that a video on your own. Hey, look, we got a clip for you. So, yeah, I mean, you're so right, and we need folks who understand what people are going through, because we need folks' voices at the table who get it and who are they understand what this means, like what stakes there are for themselves, for families, for so many folks throughout Missouri, and it would be nice to have folks in our legislature who get it. So thank you for running.
Thank you.
Yeah.
For running.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I'm doing that thing too. Yeah, that's right. Sometimes I forget
to be my next attorney general.
Yeah, I mean, like sometimes you're just sitting up here and you kind of like listening, and it's like, oh man, that person's great. Like you just totally forget. So you gave me a moment. So thanks. Well, folks, if you do have questions, I know we got to a bunch, but if you've got more, you're watching this in a replay, whatever, go ahead and put them in the comments. We'll be able to see them. We can always type back on there. But hey, wait, go to Sydney's website, sign up. Help out, support her campaign. We need folks to do that. These things do cost money, believe it or not. They cost money, and Cindy's willing to be very transparent. She already was on the show about how to do it, and so it's wonderful to have great candidates who are running, and so we're so happy to have Cindy running now in the Springfield area. So House District 133, Cindy Slimp, thank you so much for coming on the town hall. If you are looking for the replay and for some reason, I don't know, you're watching and you don't know, it's going to be up on our website. So I'll throw a little end screen up there too. It will be over at eladgross.org. You can also go to eladgross.live to see all the videos. So we'll get that up there eventually, but you'll be able to tune back in later. All right, folks, y'all enjoy. Have a good evening, and we will see you soon.